This is your primetime forecast for East Alabama and West Georgia from Dr. Don's Weather. Dr. Don's Weather is made possible by the Randolph County Commission, East Alabama Waste, Southern Auction Solutions, Genesis Wake Clinic, Jimmy Stevens Construction, Anchor Roofing, the Town of Wadley, Auction 431 South, the Salem Auction House and Bama Diesel Repair. From the Alpha Weather Center, powered by Boondocks Barbecue and Creamery, Southern Union State Community College and the venue at 5 Points Farms, here's Dr. Don.
And good morning, East Alabama and West Georgia. Welcome to your Wednesday. This is your primetime forecast for October 9th, 2024 on Dr. Don's Weather, and we have got an awful lot to talk about this morning. Thank you, Genesis Wake Clinic in downtown Roanoke, for being a proud supporter of Dr. Don's Weather. Miss Melissa and the crew have been with us a very long time. We greatly appreciate it, and we hope that you will stop by and let Melissa and her group know that you appreciate them sponsoring Dr. Don's Weather and keeping us so that we can stream weather information to you across East Alabama, West Georgia, and in situations like we have currently across the entire southeastern United States. Also, Jamie Dukas for all of your insurance needs. You want to get your ducks in a row with Dukas at 256-831-7770. Jamie can handle your insurance needs for Alabama and Georgia. He can take care of your personal and commercial insurance needs. He can save you money and, in most cases, increase your coverage. So you owe it to yourself. No obligation. Get in touch with Jamie and find out what he can do for you. So, no severe weather. As a matter of fact, the weather's just absolutely gorgeous across Alabama and Georgia, and it will remain that way at least all the way through the weekend. Our next mention of rain doesn't come up until the first part of next week, and then it's just a very, very small chance. Warm days and cool nights, low dew points, which is allowing the heat to really kick in during the daytime, and then at night we're cooling off. I mean, some locations across North Alabama, North Georgia may dip into the 40s over the next couple of evenings. Across East Alabama and West Georgia, I think mid-50s will be pretty common. Rain-free through the weekend, and here comes Milton approaching the state of Florida. And folks, this is a dire situation across the state of Florida. Now, I've just been soaking in a lot of information off of, the official websites, and also looking at a lot of stuff out there on social media. And I get it. There are a lot of folks on social media that like to push the fear button, and they like to say things that are outlandish just to get you to go to their site and click through and watch their YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff. But folks, I'm here to tell you, in this particular situation, there's no fear-mongering going on here. This is a very serious, life-threatening situation that's about to unfold across the state of Florida. And a lot of people, if you live in Florida, you hear about hurricanes constantly. You deal with tropical storms, severe thunderstorms, and occasionally the hurricane across the state of Florida. And folks become complacent. Even when you watch on television what's happened in other areas with likewise hurricanes, when it comes your turn, you just still can't believe that would actually happen to you. So you don't pay attention to what the local officials are telling you, and you roll that dice. And yes, there will be areas in Florida that are forecast to be devastated that won't be. And yes, there are areas in Florida that are forecast to be devastated that absolutely will be. Why would you want to put your life and your family's life in that kind of jeopardy? Why would you want to roll the dice on that? If there is a chance, and if your local government is telling you to evacuate or shelter in place at an official shelter, then by all means do that. Don't take that chance. The warnings are for a very large area. And this hurricane is not going to be devastating in absolutely every part of this. But the problem is now we're down to the finite details here. And a difference of 30 to 40 miles of exactly where this storm makes landfall is going to make all the difference in the world. And folks, we're human beings. Just as it was with Helene, the exact landfall of this hurricane could be missed by 40 to 50 miles. And that's going to make, in this particular case, even more of a difference than what we saw with Helene. Because if this storm does come in over or north of Tampa Bay, then the Tampa, St. Petersburg area is going to be devastated along the shoreline with storm surge. If it comes in a little bit south of Tampa Bay, then the Bay Area itself will be spared because you'll have an offshore flow instead of onshore. But then that's bad news for Clearwater all the way down to Charlotte Bay. So you see where I'm saying here. It's going to be a very close call, but if you're in any of those areas I just mentioned, as a matter of fact, if you're in the following areas: Newport Richey, Palm Harbor, Clearwater, Largo, St. Petersburg, Tampa, Ruskin, Bradenton, Sarasota, and all the way down to Fort Myers, including Charlotte Bay. And if you live on the waterfront or anywhere even remotely close to the water and have not evacuated, here's the suggestion for you this morning. Text your exact coordinates to someone who can relay information to local responders, and again, strongly advise you to evacuate. Now, there are literally hundreds of shelters that have been established all across West, Central, and East Florida. Most of the schools in the state of Florida are part of that evacuation shelter plan, and that is the case. There are hundreds of locations open for those of you who have chosen to stay. At least go to a shelter where you're going to be with other people. They're going to have basic life necessities to sustain life, because it's not just what happens when the hurricane hits and for the 5 or 6 hours after. This is going to be days, weeks, maybe even months before basic utility services are going to be back in place in some of these areas. It's not going to be that way everywhere. But here's the God's honest truth, folks. We can't tell you exactly within, a few hundred feet of exactly where the worst devastation is going to be. We can give you the possibilities, and that's what we're doing. But if you're anywhere in this area, you got to take this serious. I mean, it is so frustrating to watch the television and see people say, well, I've been here since 1954 and rode out, X number of hurricanes, and I'm still here, so I'm not going anywhere on this one either. Folks, that would be my father. That's exactly what he would say. And it's frustrating because after this is over with, probably by this time tomorrow morning, this being recorded on Wednesday morning at around 6 a.m., probably by this time tomorrow, we're already going to start hearing about fatalities in the state of Florida. You can almost take that to the bank. And it doesn't have to be. People say, well, I can't leave because I got cats, or I got dogs, I got animals, I got to go back to work Friday. I don't have the means to leave. Those are all excuses to make yourself feel better about being inconvenienced to save your life. If I told you you're going to die at 2 a.m. tomorrow morning, without question, 100%, you're going to die. Now, are you going to figure out a way to get out of there? Absolutely you are. And that's how dire of a situation this is. This is not something you want to play with. Now, I know that we cover East Alabama and West Georgia, and this storm's not going to have any effect at all on our weather. But, if just one person down there in Florida hears this and makes a decision, I don't know that it's a good idea to try to get on the roads and evacuate from there now. I think maybe that window If it hasn't closed, it's getting very close to being closed. But that's where you've got to pay attention to your local emergency management agencies in your local areas down there. If they're still telling you to evacuate, it's okay to evacuate and go to Georgia, Alabama, or Northwest Florida, then by all means go. But I know the roads are very congested. I know that there are some gas issues down there. Hoping that gets a little better this morning. But at least go to a local shelter. Do not stay in your home, especially if you're out there on the water, on the westernmost side of all of this. If you live in a mobile home anywhere from the West Coast to the East Coast across Central Florida, you don't need to be in that mobile home. We're talking hurricane force winds all the way across the entire width of the state of Florida as this thing moves shore late tonight, early tomorrow morning. Mobile homes are not built for that. I don't care if you've got hurricane straps. I don't care what you've done to try to mitigate. A mobile home is not going to cut it. You'll lose your life in a mobile home in this kind of weather. Go to a local shelter if you cannot evacuate. These are all things you can do to save your life and your family's life. What about that child you got living with you? Folks, they don't have an option. They've got to do what you do. Don't take that chance. It's just heartbreaking to see this unfold time after time after time. We go through this, and I don't understand why we cannot learn from past experiences. You don't want to stay in these areas. It is going to be devastating. Mean storm. Look at that. This is the current situation this morning. Very tight circulation there in the center of the storm, moving off to the northeast. The latest, more respectable models are now bringing it in right there at Tampa Bay. The trend over the last couple of days has been a little bit south of Tampa Bay, or I should say over the last couple of runs. The latest run has brought it back up to the north and bringing it in right there at Tampa Bay, which is worst case scenario for those of you who live in St. Petersburg, Tampa, and that particular area. And then maybe on a track to the northeast up across Lakeland, Florida, Polk County, and then right on up across central Florida. So we expect it to make landfall probably as a Category 4. So that's another problem we have here today. A lot of folks don't intently pay attention to weather. They'll hear later on today, currently it's a Cat 5, and then later on today on their local weather, they're going to see, oh, it's dropped down to a Category 4. See, it's weakening. Say, I told y'all we didn't need to leave. Folks, anything over Category 2, you don't want to stay. And we're talking probably a mid to strong Category 4 at landfall, somewhere very close to or at Tampa Bay. And that will be late tonight into tomorrow morning. Also, remember, if you're staying, once the wind sustains at tropical storm force, which is 39 miles per hour or greater, you're going to be on your own. Emergency response is not going to happen. They will stop responding at 39 miles per hour. And that's probably going to happen well before the hurricane makes landfall. Well, it will. So you're going to go multiple hours with no emergency services in the area that this storm tracks. Now, I'm talking about where the center of circulation tracks. You get out probably 100 miles from the center, and you're going to be below or right at tropical storm force. I'm talking right around that eye wall. Tampa, Fort Myers, back up toward Lakeland as this thing tracks northeast. You're going to be without emergency services for multiple hours. And then once the winds die down enough to where they can respond, they're going to have an extremely hard time getting to you because of all the downed trees, blocked roads, power lines. So once this starts, you're going to be on your own, and you're going to be on your own perhaps days or even weeks. It's a dire situation. If you got people who live down there, call them again. I know you've already begged and pleaded with them, but call them again this morning. Stay on them until you lose contact with them, and try to at least talk them into going to a local shelter. Don't stay in your home. If you live in a mobile home, you're writing your own death certificate. I'm just telling you. It's that serious. All right, let's move on. Let's go next to current conditions across East Alabama and West Georgia. And I apologize, folks. I'm just passionate about this. And I'm just awfully afraid. The death toll in Helene was just horrible, and it continues to grow. And I'm afraid we're going to see the same thing here. And it's just frustrating because it doesn't have to happen. All right, so current conditions at the venue at 5 Points Farms in Chambers County, Alabama. Beautiful weather out there this morning, 61 degrees. Wind out of the northeast at 2, gusting to 3. Humidity 94%. Barometric pressure at 29.98. Dew point 59. The high temperature of 89 degrees yesterday. We're going to see that again today. It's going to get warm this afternoon and again tomorrow. Sunrise at 6:42, and the sun sets this evening at 6:16 p.m. And there you go. We're looking at your high temperatures for today in the low to mid 80s. Some locations may be close to 90 degrees this afternoon with that ridge that is kind of slipping into North Alabama. And then your 6-day forecast from the Alpha Weather Center. Jamie Dukas, your local Alpha agent. For today, high temperature of around 80 to 85 degrees, depending on where you are. Some locations, again, could knock on 90. 54 will be your overnight low. For tomorrow, mostly sunny, 78. Temperature will back off a little bit for your daytime high. And then look at those overnight lows. I mean, Friday, 76 for your high, down to 47 on Friday night. We'll dip into the upper 40s on your Saturday. And then Sunday, warming back up, 82, 78 out there on Monday, and maybe a wee chance of a rain shower on Monday and on Tuesday. Here's your Southern Union State Community College live Doppler HD radar this morning. Of course, we're looking down in the Gulf of Mexico at Hurricane Milton, making an approach there toward Florida. And again, this track is a little bit south of the official track this morning. It's actually shifted back to the north a bit. And, you know, that's going to happen several times today with each run. This track is going to shift back and forth. Do not focus exactly on where this track is. It's a forecast track. The margin of error on this forecast track is depicted by those white lines that you see on either side of the red line. So what that means is the center of circulation could track anywhere, either side of that flashing red line, and you'll see that it puts it the possibilities are well north of Tampa and then back down towards Charlotte Bay in the direction of Fort Myers. Already seeing special marine warnings being issued out in the Gulf of Mexico. We'll see special weather statements. We'll see tropical storm warnings. We probably will see tornado warnings today. And I got to tell you, tornadoes are the least of our concern right now, and you're going to see tornado warnings across the west coast, central, and east coast of Florida as we go throughout this event. In those rain spiral bands, we're going to see those tornadoes pop up. But honestly, that's not the concern. And you know it's a bad situation when you're being told that tornadoes are not the major, you're going to have tornadoes, but that's not the big concern. That's how serious this situation is. So we'll see that today. Again, probably making landfall as a medium to strong Category 4. In the vicinity of Tampa, and that would be late tonight into early tomorrow morning. So that window of opportunity to prepare and get out of the path of this storm is in the process of closing. All preparation should be absolutely done by noon today if you're down in this part of Florida. So, folks, again, let me emphasize that if you have someone who lives down there, do a lot of praying today. That's going to be probably the best thing you could do for them at this point. But don't give up. I know they've told you no probably 15 or 20 times already. They're not leaving, or they're giving you reasons they can't leave, which, I'm sure to them seem valid. But that's because they're not comprehending what this is going to do. And as always during situations like this, the forecast is pretty broad for a pretty large area, and all locations don't end up with the bad weather. And so that's what human nature points to and says, see there, I told you it wasn't going to happen. I was right the whole time. That's foolish to think that way. There's going to be an area across Florida that's going to get exactly what we're telling you. We just don't know exactly where that's going to be. I mean, modern technology is good, but it's not that good. We can't tell you, we can't get down to street level and tell you which roads are going to be devastated and which blocks are not going to be devastated. But we can tell you a general area where it's going to happen. And if you're in that general area, you don't need to roll the dice and gamble with your life and your family's life. Call them back again this morning and try to at least get them to go to a local shelter. You don't need to stay in your home alone, just your family, because you're going to be isolated perhaps for a very long time if you survive the storm. And if you're out there on the West Coast close to the water, you're writing your own death certificate if you do that. It's just not. We're talking 10 to 15 foot storm surge out there in the Tampa Bay area if the storm does track over the bay or just north of the bay. If not, down there in the Charlotte Bay, we're looking at the same thing. It's just going to be horrendous, worse than or just as bad, if not worse, than the worst we've ever seen across this country. We ask that you support us if you can. There's the link to our weather store. There's a clickable link at the top of the video. Also, if you own a business and would like to be a partner here on Dr. Don's Weather, send us a message and we'll be glad to get you started before we do tomorrow's forecast. Most likely, we'll be back with you tonight to do a special live broadcast on Hurricane Milton as he gets awfully close to the Florida coast this evening. And then we'll have your next edition of your primetime forecast back in here first thing tomorrow morning, right here on Dr. Don's Weather. Be safe out there, folks, and keep calling Florida and begging those folks to get in a shelter somewhere. And every chance you get today, bow on your knee and pray for these folks. And let us not forget all the folks who are already suffering from Hurricane Helene, from Tennessee to North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and the Big Bend area of Florida. That's another disaster that's in the process of happening. There's going to be so much attention on Milton. I'm afraid a lot of folks are going to forget about Helene, and we can't let that happen. And we're not going to on Dr. Don's Weather.
This has been your primetime forecast for East Alabama and West Georgia. From the Alpha Weather Center, powered by Southern Union State Community College, the venue at 5 Points Farms and Boondocks Barbecue and Creamery. Dr. Don's Weather is supported by the Randolph County Commission, East Alabama Waste, Southern Auction Solutions, Genesis Weight Clinic, Jimmy Stevens Construction, Anchor Roofing, the Town of Wadley, Auction 431 South. Facebook, share us with all of your friends, and subscribe to Dr. Don's Weather on YouTube. We will be back tomorrow morning with another edition of your primetime forecast on Dr. Don's Weather.